when your bread and butter RDX and MDX are in the tank with no way of improving in the near future, the TLX being killed, like the RSX EV coupe is not going to come in and save the day either. That's all what we know is coming in the fall of 2020 or second half of 2026. Like, and that's a long ways off still. So we might be seeing, guys, an irreversible shrinking of Acura here. It is about as worrisome as what Infiniti is. If this keeps going on for Acura, at what point will Honda say, hey, it doesn't make sense to have Acura around anymore? Is that good? Is that a possibility? Could that happen before the end of the decade? August is wrapped up. That means we have sales data for the previous month as we enter into September here. And yesterday I highlighted how well Hyundai and Genesis and Kia are doing. You know, they're crushing it as a motor group. They're up about 11%. We talked about how Toyota and Lexus are just blazing hot. Demand is through the roof for the most part for their entire lineup. But in this video, we're focusing on American Honda. Had a 5% drop while we see double-digit gains for the Koreans, for Toyota. What is going on with Honda? Well, we do have their sales and we will break it down today. Make sure you have your snacks and drinks because I'm going to lay into these sales and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. But before we do, I just posted a video earlier today on the new Prelude. It is fully hybrid. It has the chassis of a Civic Type R, but not the engine or transmission of a Type R. Maybe we can hold out hope in the future for such a thing, like a Prelude Type R or a Prelude SI. We all would love to have that. I think so, just to have more options. Hybrid's great. I think hybrid's good for the masses, but for the people who've been asking for a Honda coupe, don't know how many of them have also been asking for a hybrid version of that coupe, but we'll see. Anyways, made in Japan, I think, is a huge drawing point, and the fact that it's a Honda coupe is a drawing point. But Honda plans on selling just 300 of these monthly in Japan, a very low volume. In the United States, I'm sure it's much, much higher. But what's crazy is that they actually have pricing for this model. Now, I don't have pricing yet for the North American model. It is being on sale in Japan right now. It's going on sale right now. And here's the pricing. About 6.2 million yen. Straight conversion, it would be over $41,000. Does that mean the Prelude in the United States is going to be over $40,000? Not necessarily. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to say like, oh, you know, it's under 40,000. Maybe they sell for $39,999 before destination, right? But this isn't going to be, here's the thing. I don't think this is going to be too far off of what the actual price is going to be. It's very premium coupe on the inside. Like, guys, the build quality, the materials were very, very impressive with the new Prelude when I toured it last month. Like, really, really rock solid feeling vehicle. You know, it's going to get great fuel economy, mid 40s at the minimum, right? Based off the Civic Hybrid. But at over $40,000, for $30,000, you can get a Civic Hybrid. I know not quite as sporty or as upscale, but it has the same powertrain and a lot more usability. You know what I mean? So I think the Prelude, it's going to be super low volume, super low. I see the Prelude is about having the same volume as like a Civic Type R. There are currently only 170 Type Rs in America. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be a little bit higher than this in terms of availability. But look how many Civic hybrids there are in the USA, a little bit less than 6,700 units. Maybe it'll be more like the Civic Si, about 400 units throughout the United States. That's more realistic. The Civic Si, very niche sort of vehicle, and the new Prelude, very niche. So maybe it'll outsell the Civic Type R like 2 or 3 to 1. But again, if we look at Type R prices, lowest price in America, they're 47 grand. All right. Here's the thing. If the Prelude costs 41 grand, let's just say it does, are people going to buy that when they can get an extra 100 horsepower, they can get way more usability. I know it's not the same fuel economy, but way more performance in a Type R. Okay, let me know. Let me know if you guys would spend an extra $6K over a Prelude, assuming the Prelude comes in at $41K, to get into a Type R. I think I would absolutely get a Type R over a Prelude if it costs over $40,000. And it's just one spec on the Prelude. All right, so it's probably going to cost around $40K. And then, you know, it's going to be interesting how well it sells, you know, with its unique powertrain for a coupe, that is anyways. And like, here's the thing, like I just got out of the Prius the Prius plug-in hybrid that has 220 horsepower. It will roast this, and it has so much more flexibility, and it's sexy like the Prelude. You might argue that the Prius looks better than a Prelude. I think they both look good. All right. So I think it's a tough sell. Let me know if you guys agree. I'll see you guys in the comments, but it's time to go over the negative sales numbers for Honda. What is happening? Well, Honda's still up year to date, 4.4%. We're seeing record sales of electrified models, record sales of all new products, and strong performance across the board of light trucks. In July of 2024, we had CDK go down. CDK went down, and it affected sales in June and July. All right, and they're saying because last year, the CDK outage in those 2 months, Honda had abnormally high sales in 2024. And that's why they are down year over year. That while that may be true, I am still not buying it, because look at the competition who also had CDK outages. Hyundai, Kia, Genesis had CDK outages. Toyota Lexus has CDK outages at the same time as Honda, and they're up double digits year over year. So I'm not buying that is the only reason that Honda is down. I think there is a small reason, but it's not the only reason. And Toyota, Hyundai are not making those excuses that Honda is in this opening statement here. All right. So with that being said, let's just get right into the nitty gritty. Let's get into the sales here. Starting with the Accord. The Accord is down 5%. You know, it's getting to the point where it's kind of bottomed out in terms of sales. I don't think it's going to get much worse than this. The Accord, the Integra, rest in peace TLX, they're built in the Marysville, Ohio plant that's still being converted into a flex plant so they can build 0 Series EVs there. So the Accord's down 13%. I mean, to give you guys an idea, if we look at Toyota, the Camry has sold over almost 210,000 units. And we look at the Accord, its chief rival, 96,000 units. So it's less than half. It's still huge volume, but it's less than half of the volume of its nearest rival, the Camry. All right. Now, the Civic is also down about 5%. Now, I don't know why it's down, because if we go back to my Honda, like just looking for Hondas, let's go back to my area because I'm more familiar with what kind of availability should be in my area. We have tons of Civics and a lot of Civic hybrids too, which is a fantastic car. Civic hybrids, there's over almost 700, and there's 900 Civics, not including SI or Type R. All right, so the Civic hybrid can be had for, I mean, we're getting discounts on them, about $1,500 discounts. And, you know, it's a good car. It's zippy, good fuel economy. It's a fun to drive hybrid. But the price cuts on the Civic don't seem to be helping them, you know, year over year. For the entire year, it's down 2%. This past month, down 5%. We look at the CR-V, their best-selling vehicle. Again, we go back to Toyota. Chief rival of the CR-V is the RAV4. The RAV4 was up 20%. What is happening when you have the RAV4 up 20%? And it's about neutral on the year. But if we go back to the CR-V is still up on the year, about 4%, you could say. But it had a huge fall off of 11% this past month. How is that possible when you see something like the RAV4 up 20%? Again, the RAV4 sold 42,000 units, and the CRV sold 34. Still huge volume. Still mad respect for the CRV and the Civic. Their volume is huge. You know, almost 21,000. We compare that to the Corolla, 21,000. So the Corolla at 161,000 units this year is just behind the Civic at 168,000. Those two compact sedans typically fight it out for the best-selling sedan in the United States. So it'll be fun to see if the Civic or the Corolla wins, all right, in terms of total sales. But last year, the CRV sold 402,000 units, and currently the CRV is outpacing last year's record sales total. The last time a Honda sold over 400,000 units for a single year was probably Accord way back in the day. All right, so the CRV here still doing well, but it's down on the month by a lot. If we go back to availability, there are still a ton of CRVs. In fact, there are more CRV hybrids available than the standard CRV, which I'm totally fine with because I do not really enjoy the standard CRV. The CRV hybrid is a fantastic vehicle. The lowest you can find a CRV hybrid right now, almost a $2,000 discount for about $34,000. I think it's a good buy there. So they're being priced competitively, the CRV, and there's plenty of volume, but we're still seeing maybe a lack of interest in the CRV and the Civic. The volume is there for those vehicles. The HRV down 13%. Why would the HRV be down on the month but up on the year? My theory here is that, well, it's made in Mexico. And with it being made in Mexico alongside of the ADX, Honda's like, yeah, let's just, use that production availability more for the ADX. It's a higher ticket item, a higher price ticket item. There's more profit margin to be had on an ADX versus an HRV. Doesn't surprise me that the HRV is down, and we do sorely need the Civic's 2-liter hybrid on the HRV while other markets get it in the ZRV. I just don't know why we don't have it in the HRV. It's frustrating. Honda Odyssey down 6%. This is interesting. If we go back to the Sienna's up 14% on the month, up 54% on the year. The Carnival was up like 50% on the year. If we go back to the Odyssey here, up 22% on the year, but down 6% on the month. If I go back, what is the availability of Odyssey? Not very good. Look how few there are. Just 267. So there might be some supply chain issues with the Odyssey. That's my guess. There just aren't that many available. So demand is still very high for the Odyssey, but availability is pretty low on it. All right, if we look at Passport sales are through the roof, right, with the redesign. Sexy, boxy little SUV crossover. It's not little, but you guys know what I mean. Up about almost 100% on the month, up 70% on the year. This thing is, it's going to keep printing money for them. Pilot sales are down. It's because the Passport's an actual good vehicle now. Before, it was just so vanilla. The Passport's not vanilla anymore. It has some excitement to it, especially with the design. The Pilot's very vanilla, but it has that 3-row access. I would take as long as you don't need 3 rows of seats, Passport's a better vehicle than the Pilot every day of the week. The Odyssey is a better family hauler than the Pilot every day of the week. So the Odyssey and the Passport, excellent 1-2 punch. All right, what about the Prologue? They're fully electric vehicle built in Mexico by General Motors. The sales are going crazy on it as EV tax credit ends soon. So we have 70, and one was driving behind me today while I was in the Ioniq 9. But anyways, the Prologue was up 73% on the month, up 200% on the year, just bonkers. Okay, they've sold 31,000 Prologues this year. What does that compare to something like the BZ4X? Just 12. So they have tripled the amount of the BZ4X's sales with the Prologue. Now, we know Honda is losing money more than likely on their electric vehicles. But how I see it is they would rather lose money on their EVs, getting their EVs out to customers, than have to pay green credits by not making enough EVs and having to buy green credits from like Tesla or something like that. So, pick your poison, and Honda's picking their poison and losing money on EVs instead of paying someone else to sell EVs for them through green credits. That's just my theory. I'll see you guys in the comments. It's not sustainable. And with CAFE out of the window in terms of being fined for not making fuel economy standards, then it just doesn't make sense to sell this sort of volume unless there's a true demand for this vehicle. What is availability for the Prologue? Not very high, 105 units. And if we go back to the sales here, 105 units, and we're seeing that it sells about the same as the Ridgeline. What kind of, but the Ridgeline has 4-to-1 more availability. So the Prologue might actually have decent demand, maybe, or maybe a lot of these Prologues have been bought up with the tax credit. Time will tell. But once we get out of September into October, once October's finished up, it's gonna be fascinating to see what the EV take rate is, not only with Honda, but with other manufacturers too. All right. The Ridgeline, from everything I'm hearing, the Ridgeline is due for a cancellation. They have nothing planned to replace it. Now, maybe they'll contract Nissan, and I'd be okay with that, to have a rebadged Frontier. That would be fine with me. But Ridgeline, as far as I know, no replacement in the works for it, or a redesign either. Quite crazy. Maybe Honda was planning on a fully electric Ridgeline, and maybe they still plan on doing that. I'm just not quite sure. I think a lot of us would love to have a hybrid Ridgeline, but it's just crickets. We won't see large platform hybrids for Honda on the Passport, Odyssey, Pilot, I don't know, until 2027, 2028. It's just so far from now. Before we get into Acura, what is Honda's hybrids looking like? The Accord is down. Well, the Accord is down in general. The Civic hybrid's up massively. Well, it wasn't on sale for a full year last year. All right, it just started going on sale last fall. They sold 60,000 Civic hybrids. If we go back to the Civic total numbers, 168,000. About 35% of the Civics out there are being sold as hybrids. CRV, they've sold 150,000 CRVs, and that's more than 50% of the total sales of the CRV. And again, remember when I looked at my area, there was about 1,200 CRV hybrids to about 900 non-hybrid CRVs. So that checks out there too. Again, I think Honda would be crushing it if they had large platform hybrids. But besides the Passport, their large platform vehicles are not looking. Actually, besides the Passport and the Prologue, everything is suffering for Honda, at least this past month. Year to date, it's overall pretty positive, again, up 4%, but this last month overall, minus 5%, with the Prologue and the Passport being the only two bright spots. All right, getting into Acura, I've had my worries about Acura. I'm really worried about the brand because, well, they just showed the RSX, beautiful EV, but it's coming out with no EV tax credit at the end of next year, and there's no hybrids in sight for the brand. Literally, like they said that they're coming, but it might not be until 2027, 2028 before we see hybrids in an Acura. In the meantime, well, can they rest on their traditional best-selling models? And the answer seems to be no. The Integra is down 11%. And again, Marysville Auto Plant going through a revision to build EVs there. But the Integra, though, is down 26% on the year, even further down than the Accord, doing about twice as worse as the Accord is in terms of relative sales per model. TLX, rest in peace. People trying to snap these up before it is gone. All right, so rest in peace. These numbers don't mean anything for the TLX because production has stopped. ADX, they sold about more ADXs than Integra and TLX combined, roughly about the same. All right, but once TLX is out of the equation, the ADX will be outselling the Integra by maybe 1,000 units a month. So 2,500 units for the ADX. And if we look at how much the HRV is down, it's down about 2,000 units. So they've taken sales volume away, production away in theory from the HRV. Again, that's just my guess, and given it to the ADX, which is a higher profit vehicle. MDX, oh my Lord, MDX down 25% on the month, down 17% on the year. This is bonkers. It just got a refresh, but it was a very mild refresh, a little bit of fine tuning to the front bumper. I think it looks worse personally than the pre-refresh MDX. In the interior, they gave it better technology, which was much appreciated. They got rid of the touchpad in it, but when you're coming off a refresh is there to inspire people to buy the vehicle, but in fact, it's not had any sort of beneficial effect. Down 25%. I'm curious. MDX here, how many are in my area? 308 compared to over 500 ADXs. You know, the volume here is not that high on it. So are we seeing big price drops on it despite it being down so much? And the answer is no. We're only seeing maybe a $1,500 price drop. And me personally, I don't think the standard MDX is that great, meaning the V6. The Honda Odyssey is a better luxury vehicle in the Elite package than the base MDX, and they cost about the same. The MDX, I wouldn't even say handles better than the Odyssey. Unless you get a Type S. The Type S is really good. It's a really solid vehicle. What's the Type S shaking out to look like? Oh, there are hardly any out there. Just 18. And Honda doesn't mention anything about Type S sales, so it's hard for me to shake out how many of the MDXs are being sold in the Type S trim. But going back to availability, there's hardly any. 18 in my area out of the 308. So that's like 5%, 5 to 6% of the MDXs available are the Type S. So I don't know why the availability is so low here. Maybe the availability is low because the interest is low. That's a possibility. They're just not building a lot because they're seeing the market fall off at the top end here. That's a possibility. But regardless, Type S or not, the MDX is down 25%. Not good from their traditional best-selling car. Really worrisome when it's down 17% on the year, 25% on the month, and it's on the backs of a refresh. Let's look at RDX. The RDX has actually outsold the MDX. Last August, it outsold it. So far this year, it's about 5,000 units behind. The RDX is in trouble because the RDX, they've refreshed it, I think, once. It still has a touchpad. They have no powertrain option. They have no Type S. They have no hybrid on it. It's down 22% on the year, but it's down 50% on the month. Going back to availability, the RDX has less availability than the MDX. And we're seeing about 1,500 price drop on these is my guess. So not that great of deals to be had on the RDX, but you know, if you have a lot of RDX leasers, and they're like, yeah, there's just not enough to bring me back into another RDX. There's so much other fresh product out there from the competition. More electrified hybrids out there from the competition, more sporty models, non-hybrid sporty models from the competition. You know, maybe that's what's going on. The RDX was pretty solid in 2019 when it debuted, and I don't know if it's aged as well. I know it hasn't aged as well as Acura has needed it to because its sales are in the absolute gutter. Yikes. It's down 50% on the month. And what is Acura going to do to help this? They can't do anything. They have no powertrains lined up for the MDX, RDX, ADX. They could, the ADX is a prime candidate for a hybrid system, but as Acura has said, it's like, well, it's not as simple as just dropping a hybrid powertrain in from the Civic or a CR-V into an Acura. They're like, well, we have to do safety tests, crashing, all that stuff. That takes us about 3 to 4 years to just drop a hybrid into a gas car. Until maybe a year ago, Acura had no plans of putting hybrids into their cars. They're going full steam ahead on EVs. Full steam ahead on EVs, and the brand, as a result, is in trouble. Honda's fine for now, even though they're down 5%. Honda's fine, but Acura is in trouble. They don't have enough performance, as a performance crafted or precision crafted performance brand, and they don't have enough electrification in the form of hybrids. And with the EV tax credit going away, how well is the ZDX going to keep selling for them? You know, sales have dropped off massively for the ZDX. It's halved year over year. And I'm curious, what kind of availability are we seeing on ZDXs? 18. Wow. You know, Automotive News came out with an article lately saying the ZDX was going to be continued to 2031. I'm like, this makes no sense. Well, looking at the availability of the ZDX right now, how there is none, and the Prologue availability going down right now too, this tells me, well, one, they're priced too high, but this tells me that we could see the ZDX be canceled soon, or just trickle production, like a small, very small production amount coming out of the Spring Hill, Tennessee plant made alongside of the Cadillac Lyriq. This vehicle is just low volume. Are people snapping these up because of the tax credit? Well, maybe, but there's 50% sales compared to last August. Very worrisome. Not really, because ZDX, this vehicle just bleeds money from Acura. It's up a lot on the year, right? They sold 11,000 units this year, but the sales for the rest of the year are going to tank based off of the availability I'm seeing and based off of this sales number here. Acura down 7.5%. 7.5%. Well, the TLX is up, but you can't count that because it's canceled. The ZDX is down 500 units, but their core models, the MDX and RDX, seem to be in a heap of trouble here. A heap of trouble with no lifeline, zero lifeline coming. MDX, no sign of a redesign. RDX, no sign of a redesign. No sign of new powertrains to save them. All right. And seeing the large platform vehicles drop for Honda as well outside of the Passport is a little worrisome as well, because they just don't have they don't have powertrain diversity. And that's where someone like Toyota or the Koreans, they're just going to continue to grow, I believe, in these markets that Honda could be ceding. Honda could be retracting in the large platform vehicles. The Pilot, no hybrid option. Odyssey, no hybrid option. Passport, well, I think the Passport might be okay for now because that market, that niche, might not want hybrids. Or if they do, it's a very small take rate. All right. And I think a lot of people like the V6 and the Passport as a brawny off-roader sort of powertrain. But families who want a Pilot or an Odyssey would really appreciate the fuel economy that you could get on a hybrid, and you just don't have that option for Honda. I want to be positive for Honda for the rest of the year, but I know the Accord and the Integra aren't going to see bounce backs unless something radically changes at that Marysville, Ohio plant. The ADX is the only bright spot for Acura right now, and I don't know how long that sales volume is going to be profitable for them. You got to keep in mind, yes, it comes from Mexico, but with tariffs, what kind of profitability is there on the ADX right now? And once the initial buyers are gone, is the ADX just taking buyers from previous TLX and Integra? Like the sales for Acura are down 7.5%, but that doesn't paint the full story. The RDX being down 50%, the MDX down being 25%, the ZDX evaporating before our eyes, which is fine from a profitability perspective, TLX discontinued. So you just have one model that's doing well, and that's the ADX. And the ADX is the least Acura in their lineup by far. The ZDX feels more of a performance Acura than the ADX, and that's built by General Motors. All right. So the ADX, it's just not good. It's not a good vehicle for Acura. It looks good from a sales perspective, but they can't expect the ADX to carry the brand for long. It's good to have it just to say, oh, we got a subcompact crossover, it's sure. But when your bread and butter RDX and MDX are in the tank with no way of improving in the near future, the TLX being killed, like the RSX EV coupe is not going to come in and save the day either. That's all what we know is coming in the fall of 2020 or second half of 2026. And that's a long ways off still. So we might be seeing, guys, an irreversible shrinking of Acura here. An irreversible shrinking of Acura. It is about as worrisome as what Infiniti is. Infiniti is just a 2-brand model. They're having a little bit of some hype around them with the return of the Skyline Q50. But Acura doesn't have any fun to drive cars coming for the brand with internal combustion, seemingly, for a long time. If this keeps going on for Acura, at what point will Honda say, hey, it doesn't make sense to have Acura around anymore? Is that good? Is that a possibility? Could that happen before the end of the decade? Nissan didn't give up Infiniti, but Infiniti has some things that people kind of like on the market right now, which is a body-on-frame big SUV. Acura doesn't have that. I shouldn't be comparing Acura to Infiniti right now, but that's kind of where I am. It's just sad. It's sad, it's heartbreaking, and I probably spent more time talking about an Acura here than Honda, but Honda I have less worries about. Honda has decent product out there right now. Acura's product right now is, well, it's not good enough. CVT in the Integra, not high performance enough in the Integra compared to the competition. And I'm not talking about the Type S, but something in the Integra to slot in between Type S and the A-Spec. There's nothing there. There's no all-wheel drive on the Integra either. All right. And the automatic transmission's a CVT, which is a joke in a precision crafted performance brand. And don't even get me started on the ADX again. So yikes. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the comments. Let me know what you think Honda and Acura can do to reverse this sales slide here. They say it's because they had a monster August of 2024. As we go back to the scoreboard here, that did not stop Ford from having a positive August this year. That did not stop Genesis, Hyundai, Kia from having a huge August this year. And then we see slides also in Mazda and Subaru, while Toyota and Lexus are printing money. Volvo down 6%. So the market is going down, and you're seeing certain makes thrive still. And I don't know what Nissan's up to. Nissan probably not doing great. Nissan might keep shrinking. And I don't know what General Motors is doing, right? Those companies don't report unless it's quarterly. So, but what we're seeing here is that we're having the Koreans and Toyota surge, Ford doing okay. Lincoln is in the complete dumps too, even worse than Acura. Doesn't surprise me though. Lincoln's not very compelling overall as a luxury brand. But wow, I got to shut it down. Stay tuned for more news updates. And do you think the Prelude will be successful if it sells for $40,000? I'll end it there. Long live Acura, long live Honda, and have a great day. Peace.